Maybe I'll put this in the front. I'm going to try to bring value to this episode. Click off whenever you're bored. Or you can watch the whole thing. Let's go. Hi there. Welcome back to Ever-Changing ViBE. I'm your host, wALiE. Today, we're going to be talking about bringing value. I actually wanted to start this off with a quick little shout out. I just listened to Jared's, I forget what episode number, maybe it was 150, somewhere on that mark. Shout out to you, man. Killing it. He just did a solo episode that he called Don't Force It. Ironically enough, on that episode, Don't Force It, he talked about how he had contemplated for a while, like a week leading up to that episode, how he doesn't want to just do an episode just to force out some more content. And then he was kind of doing an episode. But by the end of it, you kind of get the message that he was trying to portray. And I wanted to take a little bit of that message into consideration when recording this episode, because I do want to force it. I'm not trying to debate or, discredit or disagree with any of the valuable things that he had to say on that episode. I am just still in a place where the OCD in me and that keeping consistent is still fairly active. I got to be really careful on this table. It's super squeaky. One of the things that I wanted to do and kind of like take from Jared's episode, less about the not forcing the content, because I am forcing it a little bit today, but it's the idea of not forcing nothing. So today I want to come to the episode with something prepared for you guys, because different from Jared, I've been battling my own little hurdle with that same stuff. But it's been a lot of times with the solo content, and I think I learned a lot from the idea of not forcing it, because I needed to get an episode out. It kind of created a whole, shit show of a week, past couple weeks, leading up to my Miami trip, that I needed to get over. I needed to overcome. And that specific thing, the way I feel like I need to not force it, is not forcing content. Because when I go back and I edit and I'm looking back at my video, thinking about what I talked about on the podcast or something, I am just not happy with a lot of the stuff that I've been recording, and I don't know what the message or the thing that I'm trying to get out to you guys is supposed to be. And I am not where I was when I started, where it was just about getting something out, staying consistent, and, providing myself with a weekly episode, a weekly podcast. Now it's become a lot more, a lot more focused on the content that I'm actually creating, that I'm providing to my listeners. And I just some of the past episodes, I have literally 3 times, and I think I deleted one of them accidentally, but I have like 3 episodes that I recorded just alone that I was not proud of. I was not happy about. It was not something that I felt should go out. It just didn't make sense. And I realized after listening to Jared's episode, I was forcing the content. I was just coming to the studio because I had to come to the studio because I had to record a podcast, instead of finding value. I need to bring value to the podcast. I need to bring something to the podcast. The thing that I bring to the podcast, as you know, based off of the title, Ever-Changing ViBE, it's going to change. There's going to be so many different things. Sometimes I'm going to have a guest that we just, shoot the shit and, are laughing half the time. And then, some episodes we have a whole cast, a whole ensemble of, hilarious people, and we're doing segments and bits. and we're just having a lot of fun. Sometimes I have a guest that kind of turns into a little more of an interview style podcast. And, I'll even have a podcast where it's a little mix of an interview and a shooting the shit session. And we're just sitting down talking. And those all have value. And I continue to struggle with why I've lost my ability to do these solo rants. And I realized in that moment that it's not ranting that I'm good at. In fact, it's riffing that I think I'm good at. I can kind of take any topic, any subject, and just start talking about it and building off of it, because I use talking as my thinking. So the more I talk, especially when I'm talking out loud, is when I am thinking the best. So I wanted to start bringing value to the podcast and looking at every episode as, how is this episode bringing value? Is it bringing entertainment value? Is it bringing educational value? And one of the things that I think I forgot in this, 2.5, almost 3 years of doing the podcast is the blueprint segment is what I used to call it, but just the whole fact that I've taken on the burden of, proving the Malcolm Gladwell correct and continuing on, and the Nike, the just do it and just keep putting out a podcast every single week, because that's my dream. That's where I am set to be, is being a podcaster, a content creator, or just doing this whole thing full time. I really am focused right now on being the face of whatever content I am, creating and putting out. Not the sole creator of every single thing I do. I love guest spots, and I love working with AOHD. Those are a lot of times a lot more fun, and I feel a lot more free when, I know that it's, Gio's idea of the type of content that we're putting out, and I just have to be there to help enhance it in whatever ways I can. And then I really started to have that imposter syndrome of, if I am going to be bringing value, or like if I am going to be keeping up with this podcast, especially as I started to release, my little like YouTube reactions and whatnot, I have to conceptualize a reason, even if it's not a great or the most valuable episode, and not every episode is going to be super entertaining or super educational or the best listen episode that you're going to get. But every episode I have to go into it with a thought of, how is this episode going to bring value to the listeners? Why would someone want to click on this? Why would someone want to listen in and hear something and listen to my voice? I'm not at that stage when I started where it doesn't matter. No one's listening anyways. I can just put out something, and it's about me learning the process and learning how to become a podcaster. Now I know how to be a podcaster. Now I got to really focus on the content and the value and what am I creating? And that's what this episode's going to be all about. So in my walk today, that's really what I was trying to, pick out and plan for the episode. As you can tell, I'm in a completely different studio. No, I'm actually in the same exact studio. Some of you may recognize it if you watch a lot of the episodes, if you've been watching for a while, that this is the producer's booth. I'm all alone here today. Gio and I worked very hard in the past couple of weeks, and I know he's got a whole bunch on his plate, so we felt it was best to kind of take a day off. But I still needed to do some ever-changing vibe stuff. So we'll be back together later this week to record some more AOHD stuff. All that stuff's coming out as it usually does. I still do have some more reaction videos coming out this month. And I've just been better like planning and strategizing what I'm putting out and when I'm putting it out. But still learning the process. That part for me is new. That part, the reaction stuff, the YouTube channel, that is, I just got to put it out until I learn what my niche is, what I'm good at, what I like doing. But the podcast, I got to really start putting my time effort, energy, and especially my thoughts into each and every episode. I've talked about it a lot on some recent episodes where, you know, when I started, the biggest part that I was like investing in was financial, and the financial and energy wise, I was investing a lot of time and effort and energy and finances into a lot more of the equipment and building the studio, decorating the studio, doing all the different things, buying whatever or just the time spent, scheduling guests and doing that type of content. Where now I learned about that, that now the investment needs to be in the content. And I've really been applying that, that whole message with a lot of the reaction stuff, making sure I'm on Fiverr and hiring an editor to help me create the best, videos that I can, finding people to help me make some shorts and do all the different things as I'm still learning to do them myself. But I want to be putting out really good quality content. And I've learned how to or I've gotten a lot better with editing myself for these podcasts. But I think I was tricking myself and saying like, now that I'm putting out video episodes, I'm investing in the content. I'm investing my time, energy, and finances into the content. But I haven't really necessarily put the time or the thought into how am I actually bringing value to the content of the podcast. This podcast is so important to me, and I really do enjoy doing this. I honestly, personally, I'm in a phase right now, I should say, that I prefer the guests, the interviews, the interactions, like the atmosphere of just multiple people in the room kind of riffing and going off and doing that type of podcast. But in order to get those types of podcasts, I need to be consistent. I need to have a platform, which means there's going to have to be some solo episodes mixed in. And I can't just, because they are what they are, just allow them and the content of like episodes like this one to just be what it is. I'll just put it out anyways. It'll do what it does, and the next one I'll improve. I really got to focus on every single episode and how I can bring the most content or the most value, to each and every episode. So I had to do a lot of thinking about, all right, well, what am I going to do? Because I don't have a topic. I don't have a theme or anything. I did just get back from Miami, and I am really excited to talk about that trip, but I'm not necessarily ready to talk about that trip on the podcast. Like, I had so much fun. There's so many like lasting memories from that trip, and just so many great things that happened that, I told Booth Babe about as soon as I got home. It took me like an hour and a half. It would have been a great podcast, just me explaining from the moment I picked my brother up to the moment, we landed and I dropped my brother back off, the whole weekend, every single step along the way, the order in which we did everything, because it was such an awesome trip. But the more I thought about it, I was like, that doesn't necessarily bring value. Just hearing my story about my weekend, it was such a cool weekend, but it's not educational and it's not entertaining. I mean, there were certain parts that were funnier and fun to have, but I feel like if I tried to mix that into one podcast and one episode, then it wouldn't be the valuable episode that I'm trying to consciously think about and actively change and create and have on this show. So without Gio here, we're back. Okay, sorry. I hope that was fun for you. I started to hesitate, but I was talking about how Gio's not here, so I'm sure I'm going to get his, editing take on this episode if he does watch it, telling me how overexposed I am because I didn't know what to fucking do with the lights. This is why I pay you to come here, Gio, if you are listening. hopefully at least the audio and the visual is good. I don't have his great cameras. I don't have his great lenses. And I just had to jerry rig something. So it's funny that, on this episode, I'm talking about how I'm trying to build up and enhance the content, and I'm taking a step. And meanwhile, I'm like taking a step back on the equipment and the visual, the audio, and all that stuff. But this episode was important to me, just as this podcast is. And I needed to come down and record it. But before I get sidetracked, and I'm talking about so many different things, I want to get on the main point of bringing value. I shouted out Jared at the start of this. He's been doing something for a while now with his podcast. Anytime he has a returning guest or he's doing a solo, rather than, making the episode about the guest, he tries to pick a theme, a topic, and that's just the general idea. And of course, like throughout the episodes, especially the ones that I've returned on and been back on for, where it ends up being about so many other things, but around the same general piece. And that's when I learned, like, as I was thinking about it on my walk today, like, that's where I'm actually pretty good at. And if I want to bring the value of the education behind, this is how you do a podcast. This is how you just get to the studio, you find what works for you, and you just kind of go and do it every single episode. Whether you do have a guest episode and you have to figure out, what segments work for you, or you do a solo thing and, you put a lot of time and prep into planning out each and every episode. Maybe you have more of a serial episode, so it works in that way. Well, I used to always like pat myself on the back and get a lot of compliments about how good I can be at just ranting. And this is what I was saying about, my not talking about my Miami trip, because then I just turn into, I don't finish the point. The episode isn't just about bringing value. It's then becomes about me telling you about my trip. So I'd rather just save that whole thing for an episode about my Miami trip. It might not be as fresh on my mind, but who cares? At the end of the day, that's kind of like my personal memory, and I had a lot of fun doing it. Plus, I would like to bring my brother on to kind of like recap that Miami trip at some point. I think it would be a more fun, because I have my whole take on it. I have my whole perspective on all the things that we did, and there's other pieces of the puzzle that I'm missing out, especially if I do just start ranting about it. So, and as I start ranting about it, I go into a story, and then I start talking about something else, and then I try to, bring value, and I go into these stupid fucking cringeworthy motivational, rants of pursue your passion, and this is how you do it, and it just every single day. And I just hate that shit. I can't stand when I do it. And then when I have to go back and edit it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I really did say all this shit. It's not bringing value to anybody. So I want to focus on the bringing the value. And I am not good at ranting. I can rant for a long time and just almost endlessly, because the next thought pops in my head, and then I'm kind of going on and on about that. I look in the corner of my eye and I see some Pokemon. Now I'm talking about Pokemon and the next thing, and then Yu-Gi-Oh, and then Dragon Ball Z, and, going around the room. All right, there's a basketball over there, and I can just start talking about basketball. Oh, I'm excited for the season, all that. But it doesn't wrap up a message. It doesn't wrap up a point. And I realized, and this is thanks to Jared, listening to that podcast before my walk, I just got to pick a point, and I can riff off of a point for a pretty long time. And I've already not done a great job on this episode, just thinking about what I've already said and how many times I've kind of like side roaded the whole conversation, but I'm pretty good at riffing. Riffing always turns into rants, so I'm going to try to make sure I keep it, tight and concise, so that I don't turn this riff session into a rant session. I haven't put a whole lot of time or thought into how I am going to truly bring value to each and every episode. I mean, one way is having a guest. I mean, a guest immediately brings the value of that episode infinitely. It just like not even the content that you guys see or listen to. Like you guys might not tune into every single guest episode. It might not be the episode for you, but that episode is really valuable to me because, just sitting across from someone, having another conversation with a human being and talking and learning about something that they're interested in is what I'm interested in. I love people. I am so interested by people and getting to know stories and passions and interests and niches and all these different things. So those will immediately be valuable. Of course, if we have another fun holiday themed one like the Easter episode, I think it was episode 103 if you want to check that out, filled with hilarity. We're doing bits and segments and challenges and craziness. That's all fun in games because of, what it is. That brings the entertainment. But these solo ones, I continuously lacked the entertainment. When I was recording them in the past, up until like I've really started going back and editing them, I used to think, hey, wow, I'm pretty good at this. Because I wasn't listening back to every single word I said, and especially like I would listen back to the podcast after it was already posted, so I had to be okay with whatever I posted. But now that I'm like editing, I'm listening before it's posted. I'm like, yeah, I want to cut all this. This is all boring. So how do I bring value? Excuse me. Well, I can bring value by finding a topic like Jared has been doing. Don't force it. My topic today is bring value. How am I bringing value to this solo episode? And that allowed me to tap into like, all right, maybe I'm not that good at ranting or like it's hard to follow. It's not concise. It's not a good episode when I'm just ranting. But what is a good episode is a good riff. I've had great experiences when I do Jared's podcast or I do somebody else's podcast and there is a topic, or even when I used back in the day when we were doing a lot of the Winner Gets Nothing ones, the segment with the news stories, like each news story was its own topic, so I could riff off of that topic. And a lot of times when I'm doing solo stuff, when Gio's here, like I can use Gio to kind of like throw an idea at me so I can kind of riff off of that idea. And I'm going to really try to like stay on just this one idea of like bringing value. And I really want to bring the value of, staying quick and concise. Another thing that I've been learning, especially with the YouTube algorithm recently, is a lot of these podcasts, because they don't get the views that a lot of the reactions have been getting, and they don't have anywhere near the retention. I mean, obviously, they get very bad retention on an hour and a half long episode, but how else can I bring the value is like make it concise enough that people will tune in for more of it. So I think the other part too, like just keeping it shorter, I think is a little more of a way of like someone's going to see the podcast or video or the thumbnail. If I can make a good enough thumbnail, have a catchy enough title, they might give it a click. Hopefully they can watch for at least 30 seconds so I can get that view. And I think seeing the timestamp of about, 30 or so minutes is the best way to do that. I know myself when I am scrolling through and especially now where I follow myself. So I have like that type of algorithm in my feed. So I get suggested more of those smaller local podcasts and, that do have shorter views. Even I don't click on them because I'm like, you know what? This person looks like they have a podcast very similar to me and I should click on it to, give it a view and give it a listen so that, I can kind of do my own research and kind of learn different styles and different ways of doing a podcast. But I go, I don't have an hour. So I don't give that podcast a shot. And maybe some of my listeners, the people that, check me out on or have been listening in from like Apple and Spotify or wherever you listen, and just like the podcast, you might be a little upset this week that I'm only going to bring you a short episode, 30 or so minutes. But if you do want more content, check out my YouTube channel. Like, comment, subscribe on any of the videos there. I have on my channel page, there is a nice little like intro to the channel. But if you like my content and you're supporting me and following me already on the podcast, and you want a little more wALiE this week, check out some of my YouTube videos. I got some great reactions up. I think I have a couple body cams already out there. I have a Jubilee coming out soon. It might be out before this episode, where women measure breast size. So hopefully that's a nice little teaser for you guys to check out. But give those a click. Check them out. If you like them, share them with a friend. If it makes you laugh, leave a comment. If you just enjoyed it, or you just want to continue supporting, give me a like. If you are just listening to this podcast, hopefully this got you through a good chunk of your commute or all of your commute, and you enjoyed listening to my attempt at bringing a little more value to some of these solo episodes. If you know what's one thing I've been getting better at the YouTube like, comment, subscribe bullshit, but what I don't do often enough is ask you guys to rate, leave a review. I'm going to be honest. I don't give a fuck what you rate me. Rate me 5 stars or rate me a half a star. Honestly, from what I've learned about the algorithm and whatever, any engagement is good engagement at this point. I'd rather you guys, leave a review, give me whatever stars that you think I deserve. I think I stopped caring about what a podcast is rated, because either it's the fan of the show that's reviewing or rating the podcast, so they just give it 5 stars because they want to help support and build up the podcast, or it's like a hater who just gives it 1 star because they just want to take it down. Any engagement or feedback gives me a lot of information, a lot of knowledge. So whatever platform you're watching me on, if you just want to give me some comments in the YouTube algorithm, great. It helps. Like, dislike, it's all good for me. And if you're on the podcast or Apple Podcasts or Spotify and you think I only deserve 3 stars, give me 3 stars. I really do value that. And I think the rating system should be back to what the rating system's supposed to be. Don't just give the podcast 5 stars because you like me and you want to support me and you want to be nice, or 1 star because you hate me, or do that. If you hate me and you want to just give me 1 star, just give me 1 star. I think you'd be like the first person to ever rate this podcast. So I'm gonna thank you. I'm gonna look real close in the camera and say thank you one more time, even if you give me 1 star. But yes, if you enjoyed this episode, like, comment, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Otherwise, rate, review, or just shoot me a DM. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like, however you want to get in touch with me, or just continue to be a passerby. And thank you for taking another step into my world, into my journey, as I build up this podcast, as I get better at bringing value to each and every episode. Another episode, all done. wALiE out. I should have swung it the other way. I just realized, Gio, if I keep this in, not only is the lighting probably really off, I didn't even try to adjust the focus. I just remembered about that. But I'm done. I'm done recording. I'm done doing this episode. And it is what it is. Maybe I'll put this in the front and let you know. Hey, this is I'm going to try to bring value to this episode. If you liked it, thanks. Oh, wait. I'm going to try to bring value to this episode. If you like it, do so down below. Click off whenever you're bored. Or where you can watch the whole thing and join me as I try to bring value episode after episode. That sounded so sarcastic. Hope you guys enjoy. Bye.